Hey there, everyone. This is David McLeod coming to you today from Dublin, Ireland. It's actually, as you can see behind me, it's still light out, but it's like 7 p.m. now in Dublin, and it's going to be dark, I'm sure, before this broadcast is over. Today, we're going to be talking about add water and stir and see what happens with the karma you create. And to help me do that today, I'm going to introduce my good buddy, my friend, co-host, Tommy Stoffel. Good day, Tommy. How are you doing today?
Hey, David, I'm doing great. Did you say good day with like an Irish brogue? Was that an Irish accent at all? Or?
Well, maybe accidentally.
I'm doing well, thanks. Yeah, what are we talking about today? I like your add something and stir and see what kind of comes out of it. We're talking about karma. And we can start with this big word karma and what it means, or we can start with something really practical and say, hey, what there was a TV show called My Name is Earl, and in the beginning he always saw this TV show, and I'm going to forget the guy's name who said it, one of our spiritual teaching brothers. He said, do good things and good things happen, do bad things and bad things happen. And somehow in there is a little foundation for what we're going to be talking about today. And why we're talking about it, I still don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, that's actually an interesting point. You know, do good things and good things happen, do bad things and bad things happen. And that's really what karma is all about, according to what I understand of it. And so it's kind of like, you know, you reap what you sow. That's another common phrase that we hear. And another one, the one that kind of resonates for me a lot, is what goes around comes around. And I think what we've been talking about, Tommy, and what you pointed out in the teaching of John Lennon, for example, is karma doesn't wait until tomorrow to happen. The moment we put something out there, it's already reflected back to us. We may not necessarily experience it in the same way that we put it out. And I think that's what he was trying to teach through his song, the Instant Karma song. So it's a very, very interesting perspective and something that affects all of us, whether we choose to agree with it or not. It's kind of like the law of gravity.
Yeah, which scientists don't understand. They don't understand how the hell gravity works, although it obviously does. So karma, a very nice analogy, is just like that. It works. It is the nature of the universe. And I'll talk a little bit about what I understand of karma and see if that makes any sense. But it just is, and it's an important part of our spiritual journey to recognize it, to realize it, and to pay attention to it, because I sometimes think of it as my karmic bank account, and I can also put the word in there, my karmic energy account. Mm-hmm. There's an account. There's an accounting for it, and quantum science is kind of getting close to maybe showing that everything we think about, everything we do, everything we say, every action we take leaves an energetic imprint. My voice is actually energy, right? Mm-hmm. My actions, my hands flying around are energy. It's moving the air and doing things. So like that, my heart, my emotions, whether it's coming through in love or coming through in anger, it's registering. It's an energetic imprint that's happening. And it's being registered somewhere, almost like this giant ticker tape is through time, is just leaving an imprint in time. Mm-hmm. And we all have our own account in that imprint. We all have our own personal, spiritual, karmic bank account. And
yeah,
so,
I think I like that analogy, and I think that one of the ways that I look at it is, anything that I think, say, or do, or feel is kind of like throwing a pebble out into a pond. And you can see the impact the instant that it hits the pond. But what you don't necessarily recognize is the ripples, how they just keep going outwards and outwards and outwards and outwards. And in some ways, they seem to be slowing down in energy. And so they appear to be getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but they never go to zero. They extend out. And then the other thing is, when they reach certain boundaries and other energy forms, as they come into contact with them, what happens is they start coming back. And they come back in maybe slightly different ways all the way around. But this is the whole point that we're trying to talk about here, is all of this happens the instant we do it. It doesn't wait. I mean, it's happening instantly. And even if I don't necessarily feel the direct impact of something that I'm doing, because maybe someone else hasn't yet reacted to it, or it hasn't had enough time to get out there, I have a reaction inside of me. So if I do something that maybe I know isn't a good thing to do, I'm going to have like a conscience kind of reaction, or I'm going to have, the twinges of, oh, geez, did I really mean to do that? Did I, that already happens the moment I do it. So there's all kinds of different ways that this can come back to us, and maybe not always in a way that we expect or that we recognize as being a karmic reaction.
Very, very true, and very nicely spoken. And I sometimes call that the boomerang effect. Like when you say the ripples going out and coming back. And speaking specifically on kind of negative actions or things we do that don't feel so good. Truth of the matter is we're only hurting ourselves, no matter what we do, right? If we yell at somebody else, those are like these boomerang actions, right? You throw a slander at somebody else and and you get back in the head. Maybe a year from now, you won't associate with what happened. Like, why did that happen to me? I'm such a nice person. Well, because we set something in motion. We do. Karma is also setting things in motion. There is an immediate impact on the energy of the universe instantly, but that boomerang may not come back for a while. But we set it in motion, like you said. The ripples are set in motion, and when they come back and whack us upside the head, or we feel bad, whether it's instantly we feel like, shouldn't have done that. Right, that's kind of an instant thing, and then there's a overall effect of all the actions we take. Just have to start considering that.
Well, okay. So now, as you were talking, a question came into my mind, and I'm sure that this is something that other people probably think about, and maybe our viewers are thinking about it too. I think about people who, in my maybe in my judgment, don't seem to be doing very good things. And yet, to all outward appearances, they seem to be very successful. They seem to be very happy. It's almost as if their life is just blossoming for them. And yet, whenever I'm around them, I just feel, it's just, I don't like the way they behave. And so let's talk a little bit about that. How do we account for the fact that bad people seem to get good things?
Two kind of things come up. I don't know that these are right or these are the answers, but there's two things. One is, if we could apply the microscope of truth and wisdom and be able to look inside of somebody, we would see the truth. We would see somebody who is probably not happy with themselves. Even though outside, yoo-hoo, I got all this stuff, and I'm there. Now, this is not equating to having material wealth or anything like that, because there are people who have lots of material wealth who are just brilliantly beautiful inside, enlightened, doing great things. But the people who appear to be being successful, right? I bet if you had that magic scope and you could look inside that person, you're not going to find an epitome of happiness. You're going to find suffering. You're going to find misery. You're going to find a lot of the negative energy that they're kind of creating is festering inside of themselves. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, yeah, I think there's probably some truth to that. But I'm going to say, on the other side, maybe the person really is happy. Maybe the person really is successful. And maybe, just maybe, the discomfort is all in me because I am maybe holding some jealousy or some envy or some other kind of negative emotion that is causing my own internal turmoil. Maybe that's all it is. And I mean, that's certainly a possibility. So I'm creating my own suffering by allowing myself to be influenced by what I imagine to be someone else's happiness. And somehow they're taking it away from me or whatever else I might be imagining in my head. So we can be creating our own karma even without doing anything. all we have to do is think about it and feel it, and that's enough.
Yeah, and you're getting into, boomerang effect kind of imply that we're doing something and the boomerang comes back. But boomerang actions or boomerang thoughts, boomerang feelings. Somebody once said that, or it's actually on my Lululemon bag. It says, jealousy works the opposite way you intend it to. Just as an example, the whole thing about being jealous about somebody else and what they have or who they're with, that person is going about their life, la 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 la, being with who they're with and doing what they're doing. We're being jealous. Where is that going? Right inside. And jealousy is not a positive energy. It's not a plus sign in the head. It's not a plus sign in the heart. It's a negative sign in the head. It's a negative sign in the heart. It's energy. Yeah. And it's almost like we're holding the gun to our own head. It's almost like we're stabbing ourselves. Death by 1,000 cuts. So I think that's kind of what you're saying is like when we have judgments of others, negative judgments, we have jealousy of others, we have anger towards others, we have frustration towards others. It's the law of attraction. It's a law of reflection. It's like hurting us more than it's hurting anybody else usually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. But what I'm really trying to point out here is it's not up to me to decide what's karmically correct for you or anybody else. I can look and I can interpret things and I can maybe make some evaluations about what's going on, and I might be right, I might be wrong. But like I say, each of us has that power. And if we allow ourselves to get caught up into the whole head talk thing about, oh, that guy's doing this, he's a bad person, or this guy's doing that, he must be a good person, that's just us making our own value judgments. And whether they're true or not is completely irrelevant. It's what we believe inside. And that question then is, if that's what I'm believing, what am I creating outside as a result of that? What am I creating for myself? What am I creating for the world around me? What am I creating for my loved ones when I have those kinds of beliefs? And we've talked a lot about beliefs and thoughts and all the other stuff in the last few weeks. So this is all just kind of coming back full circle. It's like you said last week, I think, we just kind of come at it from slightly different angles. We look at it from this place, from this place, from this place, and we just see things differently.
We do, and again, it's the pointing fingers out versus pointing fingers in. If we're judging somebody else using, ideas and opinions and all those things, energetically, if we're projecting that, right, it is, in essence, we're doing ourselves more harm. And the whole big world of karma, of all the actions we take and everything we do, right? Yeah, we gotta, we have to. It's our personal account. It's our personal account, and I really can't care about your personal account. I can't care about somebody else's, what they're doing. Oh my God, that person is doing such horrible things, and I need to monitor myself first. I need to put my own oxygen mask on before I assist others. So we need to focus on that, right? Yeah. For ourselves, what karma means to us, and how we hurt ourselves without even knowing it a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. I like that, the old oxygen mask metaphor. And it's true. It's true. I can't do anything about you anyway. I can offer you feedback and you can decide whether that feedback is relevant to you or not. But ultimately, if I have an agenda and my desire is to see you change, then that's work that I've got to do on myself. That's not really about you anymore. It's because if I have a desire for you to change, it's because there's something that you reflect about me that I'm not comfortable with in myself. That's really what it means. That's the whole nature of projection. And that's what we do in our lives, is we project all the time. So, the karma thing is, I can certainly affect the world around me in ways that I choose. But when I look at what's happening in my life, if I look at everything that's happening in my life and I just take a kind of an evaluation, and maybe something real bad is happening to me right now, even though I might be able to point out, yeah, that bank did this, that conglomerate did this, that landlord did this, But the question I have to ask myself is, how did I invite all of this into my life? What was it that I set in motion that helped to create the environment for these things to happen to me? Maybe there's a good question there for us to look at.
Yeah, the question of invitation. What am I inviting upon myself?
Mm-hmm.
And we could expound upon that, and we will. The basic thing that I fall back into, just to kind of not let my head explode with that, is what am I projecting? What energy am I putting out? Because what I put out, I get back. And if my energy system, if my energy system that I'm talking about that I project with is my thoughts, my mind, and my emotions, and maybe my body if I'm really gonna get into it with somebody, but mostly it's my thoughts and my emotions. And if our thoughts and our emotions are stuck in fear, stuck in negativity, stuck in frustration, stuck in wanting to control everything, and we can't, and you can feel the heaviness. And I've drawn little pictures in my course, and I drew a little like a dough person, like a gingerbread person, and I put a negative sign in their head and a negative sign in their heart. And I'm like, a lot of us walk around with more negative in us than positive. Mm-hmm. Next week we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about change of command and how that energy shifts. But for now, so if we really want to lick this karma thing and get on the right side and get our bank account balance in the positive, we've got to be projecting, like you said, David. We've got to be projecting more positive. We've got to be projecting more positive thoughts and more positive emotions than negative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's really about taking responsibility. You know, what the first part of that question, what am I doing to create this environment in my life, this series of experiences, the circumstances that allow these things to happen? How am I inviting those into my life? Well, if I'm willing to answer that truthfully and then take responsibility for the choices I made that got me into that sequence of thinking and everything else, then I can say, well, is this the kind of impact I want to create? Is this the way I want my life to look? Is this how I want all the rest of the world around me to be impacted by me? Well, if the answer is yes, then go ahead and just keep behaving that way. And if the answer is no, then you can look at, well, what things can I change? What things do I have control over that I can change? Well, I certainly can change my thoughts. My feelings may start to change too. And when my feelings start to change, then the words that come out of my mouth will start to change, and the actions I take will start to change. It's all connected. There's no way that it can't be connected. And so when that changes, guess what? Everything outside starts to change. So we get to create our lives the way we want to, and that's something that's pretty damn amazing if you ask me.
It is pretty damn amazing. The one hitch in this, because everything you said is true as I feel it and understand it and think about it too. So to me, what you're saying is resonating, and it is true for me too. We can't just wake up one morning and start to be positive and think that by nighttime our life is going to be positive, because it's like a locomotive out of control, right? If we've been behaving in certain ways our whole life, there's that karmic potentiality, is an official way of is how it's talked about. We've planted the seeds in our life for karma to actually manifest, for things to happen. We planted a seed a year ago by having some nasty fight with some relative somewhere, and maybe that seed hasn't germinated and hasn't manifested yet. Look, even if you wake up tomorrow and you decide, for the rest of my life, I'm going to be as best as I'm going to be great, I'm going to be good, and then next week another shitty thing happens. Like, what? I've been at this for a week now.
Well, we talked about that, Tommy, when we did that episode on premature positivity. You know, the whole point of that was, sure, you can change and do positive thinking, but if you don't get underneath to the negative stuff and deal with all of that, then you're just lying to yourself. You're basically covering over all the stuff that's really there with a false facade to make it look good. And that doesn't work. You can't fool the universe. You can't fool karma. The truth is you are still who you are, and you may have to go back and do some cleanup. That's just life, you know?
in this TV show that I referred to, My Name is Earl, a brilliantly wonderful TV show. And in it, Jason, I'm going to forget his last name, but in the show, Earl says, I'm karma's bitch. Just meaning he's done so much stuff in his life. And the show is about him being a bad person in his whole life. And then he has this wake up moment. And now he's trying to compensate and do good things and help people and fix the situations that he broke in his past life. And it's a hilariously brilliant show. But the thing is that, yeah, you've created the causes already. And there's going to be a period of time when you're still reaping the benefits of some of the stuff that we didn't really intend to do. So there's a couple things I want to just point about that. You're right here in this moment right now. And as we're thinking about karma and talking about karma in this moment, what's happened has happened, right? It may still, and the potentiality may still mature and manifest, and something may happen. But we've got to forgive ourselves for what we've done, because we really didn't know what we were doing. We got to forgive ourselves for the causes the seeds we planted and things we've done. It's like, instead of going back like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh my God, I'm an idiot. Oh, I did that again, right? That doesn't do any good. That's just more negative thoughts and energy in your system when you're trying to rise above it. So there's something in the not clinging on to the past and letting it go and learning from it and moving forward. There's a lot of, that's what's got to happen as you work in this karmic game.
Yeah, and you know, when we were talking about the, I think the premature positivity and all the rest of that, we were talking about how sometimes the brain gets locked in. We kind of get into a rut, we get into a pattern and a way of thinking. Well, guess what? The people in our lives get into that pattern too. Those people in our lives are used to seeing us in the way that we've been showing up until now. So when we suddenly change, they're not used to that. They're not used to that. So don't expect the people in your life to immediately forgive you. It ain't going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, I've been doing this personal growth work now for over 20 years, and I still have challenges dealing with the members of my own family. They still can't imagine that I'm this guy when they see me from 20 years ago. 20 years have passed, and they still aren't able to do that. So, you know, all I can do is send my love to them and bless them, and you know, they'll either forgive me or they won't. That's up to them. You know what I'm saying? So we all have to just forgive ourselves, do our own internal work, continue to plant the seeds that we want to have grow in our world, create the kind of impact that we want to create, and trust that the universe will respond accordingly.
Trust in the fact that it will respond accordingly, because it has to. This isn't some person sitting around judging us. This isn't somebody saying, okay, you've done enough good things now, and now we're going to start giving you good stuff. That's not the way it works. This is, at some degree, at some point in time, they're going to prove this scientifically, that somewhere in the quantum energy field is this recording, and it is what it is. And so it's not like somebody's going to change your bank account or start, you know, letting you make more withdrawals or give you a nicer loan. Your bank account is what it is, and when it rises above the threshold of when you come out of the red and into the black, in the case of a bank account, now you're in the black, which means you're in the positive account. Then you're actually going to naturally start attracting more positive outcomes, because the seeds you've planted have either grown up and matured, and you've dealt with them, and you've gotten over it, and you're going to start to see the positive fruits of your labor. It's energetic dynamics, it's energetic science, it's energetic fact. Project positive enough, and we're projecting that positivity, and when your karmic seeds ripen and manifest and you deal with them, then that's one less thing that you have to deal with. And now your life gets a little lighter, life gets a little brighter, get a little more on your path of where you want to go.
Yeah. You know, the 12-step program for alcoholics and other people who have addictions uses, one of the steps is to make amends. And that is, you have to go through and identify all the things that you've done that may have caused harm or damage to other people, and maybe not just people, but property or whatever. And then to do whatever you can do now to make amends for that. That's essentially what we're talking about here. We're talking about taking a look at your own life, noticing all the seeds that you have planted, and deciding how you want to deal with all those seeds. What do you want to do with the harvest that's been created there? That's really what we're talking about here. And it's not like you're making yourself a bad person by doing that. In fact, what I think you're doing by making amends is you're taking responsibility. That's what you're doing. You're taking responsibility and you're saying, this is what I did. I want to make it up. How do I do that? And you come to some kind of an agreement with each of the other parties who are involved. That's all it really takes. And if they don't want to have you make amends, well, then that's their stuff. That's their stuff to deal with. The point is, you're coming from a place of love. You're coming from a place of forgiveness, of self-forgiveness and other forgiveness. You're coming from a place of trust, knowing that what you're doing is very much in alignment with who you really are. Those are the key points. And when you do that, you start to create good karma for yourself.
In making amends, not always possible, right? To actually make amends for a situation. Maybe that person's no longer in your life. Maybe they're not even on the planet anymore. But you can still do this. You still make amends within yourself. And these are things I actually teach in the course I teach. I actually have people bring up past life events just by listing them out, not by revisiting everyone or making a list and going to, actually not to take action except for in that situation, bringing them up, because what that does, and these are called samskaras in Sanskrit, and samskaras are memories that are tied with emotions, and in this case we're talking about negative type emotions, things we've done that we're not proud of or not happy of or angry or whatever. And we don't have to necessarily make amends with a person or a situation in person to disassociate those and to dislodge those samskaras. We just need to bring them back up into our consciousness and shine our light of awareness on them and bring the love into them, as you said, David. Bring the love and forgiveness into that situation now for what we did. We can't change what we did. Even if we have a person in our life that we can go back to and maybe try to work things out with, that's not the case for probably 90% of what we've done. So we have to have a different way, and actually just bringing them up, shining our love and awareness on them, and with a giant dose of forgiveness is often enough to dislodge those samskaras, and then they're no longer have an energetic impact on you.
Right. Well, you're absolutely right. I think energetic amends are very powerful, and there are many ways that we can do that. And I'm sure you and I could come up with hundreds of different ways of doing it. But what I'm saying is we have to make amends, period. Whether we do it energetically, purely energetically, or whether we can do it in person with somebody. I think there's a lot more power when we can do it in person and have that person feel the energy directly. However, as you say, that isn't always possible. Person may have died. Well, you can still do an energetic amends with the person who has died just by calling that person into your presence, calling the energy of that person into your presence. You know what that person felt like in your life. You know what that energy feels like, so you know when it's there. And when you do that, you can call that energy and you can just say whatever it is you want to say, cleanse your own palate and your own soul, offer yourself forgiveness, offer the other for forgiveness, even though they don't necessarily need it, but just have that cleansing process. And then by doing that, you start to clean the slate a little bit, and you help to raise that balance from the red into the black.
And I think you've left people with a beautiful exercise to work on, David, to visit some of those things that maybe you're not proud of, to visit some of those things where you were hurt or you hurt others, and to bring them into your present awareness, bring that embodiment of that situation or that person into your present moment awareness with your light of awareness and love, look at it, and you will release it. That energy will release. And that may be a way of when these karmic seeds that you've planted, it's at least putting a positive bit of karma out there. It's at least making a positive account or deposit into your account. Even though that negative karma may ripen and mature somewhere else, you're still adding to your positive balance by doing this, making amends. So it's a brilliant exercise to leave people with.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I want to say about this is that if you do this work, just putting out the positive energy will prepare you in a way so that even if something turns around and comes and hits you up the backside of your head from way back when, you'll be able to deal with it in a much more mature and enlightened and empowered way. That's what we're talking about here. Raising your consciousness, raising your awareness, and bringing yourself up into full alignment with who you really are. And that brings us right to next week, Tommy. What are we going to be talking about then?
It does bring us right to next week. We're talking about change of command. And the idea here is that there comes a point in our life when the positives start to outweigh the negatives, when our being starts to command over our human, our mind, in this transition that happens. We've talked about it a bit before, and we'll talk about it some more next week with change of command.
Awesome. Well, goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, Tommy. We'll talk again next week.
Peace out, everybody. See ya.